All right, hello, and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop Online Sales Magazine and Pipeliners CRM, joining you as usual from a bit of a cloudy San Diego today. And I'm delighted to be joined by Tony Morando, who's also in a little cloudy San Diego today. How are you doing, Tony?
I'm excellent, John. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Tony's a results driven chief sales officer with a proven 19-year trajectory from account executive to executive leadership. He's built and led high performing sales teams that drive multi-million dollar revenue growth. Your leadership, Tony, you've helped World Emblem become the industry in fast go to market custom apparel decoration solutions, expanding across North America. And you've elevated sales operation, expanded teams, optimized process, and executed growth strategies and driving measurable business impact. And that's what we want to talk about today is kind of your approach to sales and building and scaling a high performing sales organization. So let's get straight into it. So in your 19-year career from account executive to chief sales officer, what are some of the key experiences that have shaped your approach to sales and to sales leadership?
Excellent question. Yeah, I think honestly, for me, it's been kind of starting in the trenches from the bottom up, learning about cold calling, door knocking, rejections, handling kind of objections. Really, that's taught me about, the grit and empathy that it takes to be a leader. And also learning to adapt, right? So one thing I've learned is leadership is really about empowering others. I don't have all the answers, but I'm surrounded by a team of individuals that make up a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience within the industry that allows us to kind of work better as a group, but also as a leader, it allows me to empower them to kind of solve some of the issues that I may not have the answers for.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that, Tony, is oftentimes, people, salespeople who become sales leaders who go through that, they struggle in that transition because you're talking about empowering people, surrounding yourself with smart people. Oftentimes they feel like, oh, I've got to do it all, or people, or they say, or their idea of coaching is you would just kind of do what I used to do. And then when people say, well, what did you used to do? And you go, I don't know, but it worked.
You're 100%. And I've seen it firsthand. We've had, people within the industry, even clients were extremely successful sales reps were promoted into leadership positions and they weren't successful. I think it's really learning the ability to adapt, to listen and empower others and not take it all by yourself. So
Yeah. So how much does coaching play a role in your sales leadership, and what's your concept of coaching? Because again, it's something that oftentimes people have different ideas of what coaching really is.
yeah, we actually spend quite a big chunk of my time, particularly on coaching. And then my middle level managers also, we enable them to coach their teams. So we have daily huddles, as I've talked about in other podcasts. It's really a quick 15-minute high level, what's your priority for today? What was your biggest victory from yesterday? And that allows some individual coaching as a leader to the group, but also as individual contributors to the group. They all kind of learn from each other. We also put a focus on quarterly trainings, and as a matter of fact, I actually just got back from a training trip that we had in Fort Lauderdale with our service team, which was really focused more so on standardization, playbooks, and really kind of following the standards and not working in abnormalities, which
Mhm.
is something that we've really been focusing on this current year.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because standardization. Because I think that's a thing that often undermines a lot of organizations is when the sales. A typical example is maybe you and I have the same type of opportunity, almost identical in many ways. You have it in stage three, I have it in stage two. It makes it impossible to forecast when you have that kind of inconsistency. So getting people on the same page is really important. So playbooks and really defining your sales process obviously plays a big part.
Yeah, so we've had all our executive team and mid-level managers attend the University of Kentucky True Lean course.
Mm,
And really, what that course sets up is the ability to manage through standard work. And that state of work is critical. And I could say from a company that has evolved quickly from a small family business to a rather large company now, we went through some of those challenges of not having those processes in place or those standards in place. We were acting as if we were a $10 million company and not where we are today. So it's been critical in terms of us maintaining our growth trajectory, as well as keeping everybody on par to hit, our Hoshin goals or our 3 year top line goals.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that. I myself, many years ago, did a lean course up in the University of Michigan, actually, and it is incredible how when you when you standardize and when you look at workflows and efficiencies, it's amazing what you can uncover. And the thing is, though, sales has often been kind of resistant to this kind of thing because they've always thought, well, process belongs to other people. Sales is more kind of, it's a little bit of an art form. But the best performing sales teams are really good on process.
Yeah, we use the analogy as a football team, right? So when you look at a coach on the sidelines, that coach is always carrying something in their hands. If you
Right.
notice, they have
Yeah.
their playbook, right? So whatever scenario they're in, whether it's third and long, third and short, we're using kind of that same thought process, but on the sales side, right? So I have a playbook. All of my mid level managers have their playbooks, and depending on where they are, whether in the sales process, with a prospect and closing, whether it's a cold call, they know exactly what to do in every single scenario, which is taking some time to obviously refine and create. But I tell you what, it makes their job a heck of a lot easier. And as a result, close rates are up, higher quotas have been attained, which is something that I don't think would have happened without it.
Yeah, and let's face it. I mean, when salespeople are closing more, the quotas are earning more commission. Everybody's happy. We always say, what's it? Revenue changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Yeah, and as you have built and expanded the team, one of the biggest issues that I always hear from sales leaders, and have experienced it myself on many occasions, is recruiting and retaining top sales talent.
Shoot.
I mean, I have never heard a sales leader say to me, "Ah, John, yeah, it's easy to find top salespeople. Yeah, no problem at all." Everybody says, "Oh my goodness, it's almost impossible." So how have you managed to recruit and expand your team and then retain them?
Yeah, so a couple different parts there. One is the recruiting aspect, right? So when I am recruiting, I'm always actively recruiting, whether it's in the field, traveling with reps and meeting individuals, or what's been really successful for me is LinkedIn,
Hmm.
um, the network connections, and just people wanting to get out of big corporate America and look for kind of a smaller family type of business has led to some really interesting conversations. So that's kind of where I've been looking. One thing we do is we definitely hire for attitude, understanding that somebody can be coachable, that somebody has the grit, somebody's willing to collaborate with other members of the team. I mean, those are kind of the core pillars that I look for in the recruiting side. And then retaining, it's really through clear onboarding. Again, going back to the whole lean process of letting everybody know exactly where they're going, how they're going to get there. Um, Mentorship. I mean, fortunately for me and my team, we have a lot of tenure. We don't turn over many people or many
Hmm.
reps. And I think part of it is because we do set everybody up for success by showing them specific growth path, where they're going to be in the next couple of years, how they can get there, and also driving a culture that is welcoming, right? So our culture is not your typical, Fortune 500 culture.
Hmm.
It's a little bit wild. It's a little bit unorthodox, but it works for where we are today. And people tend to really kind of get sucked in, not sucked in, but meaning like that
Yeah.
they enjoy what they're seeing. So
Yeah, and just on that, how are you seeing that change in what people are looking for in an organization? Because I feel like what you're describing is something that is happening a lot across the board, where people are sort of going, "Yeah, I want something a little different. I want something that's maybe more meaningful. I want to be part of something that's a little more meaningful. I want to be with good people. I just don't want to be in a dog eat dog world where, we're just like moving towards numbers. I want a little more. Has that, are you finding that? And are you finding when you have those conversations that more people than maybe in the past are kind of looking for that?
Yeah, I think staff wants to feel like they're contributing to the bigger picture, right? They want to feel like they truly matter and they're not just a number in a big chain of personnel. So we do have these conversations on a regular basis, and we do actually we survey our own internal staff with 360s and just kind of seeing where people are, where their headspace is, and a lot of the conversations are, again, they're around the fact that they want to maintain kind of this family culture, the fact that they can come to myself, they can go to a colleague, they can go to the CEO, they can go to our operations manager, they go to our technical manager, they go to market. The fact that the company is open with those kind of conversations, I think really makes people feel at ease. And when I've talked to recruits that are coming over from other large companies, it's a very common conversation. People are looking to feel like they truly matter, and they're not just a number.
Yeah, and what you mentioned there about the more kind of matrixed approach, and the ability to be able to work across departments, to talk to people at different levels of the organization. Again, I think that's really what people are looking for. I do think the traditional hierarchical organizations and those rigid kind of bureaucracies, and they're a thing in the past, because I think being nimble and being able to share, because let's face it, nobody's an expert anymore, right? You may know something, you may know a lot about some particular things, but you don't know a lot about a lot of other things that other people do. So we're relying on people more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, the collaboration piece is critical, and that I think has changed so much since COVID, right? Post
Yeah.
COVID, where a lot of the staff were office based, and a lot of them went into remote offices, and now a lot of them are coming back in office space. I feel like a lot of staff lost the ability to collaborate when they really became individuals working in satellite locations. Now that we're seeing the office kind of mentality come back, as well as more video driven through Teams and
Hmm.
Google Meet. I think that's kind of driving more of that culture that we're really enforcing. And it's also, little things like every meeting that we have with our staff, it's mandated that the cameras are on. And we got
Right.
a lot of resistance for that in the beginning. A lot of people didn't want to have their cameras on. They didn't want to be seen at 6 in the morning, or whether they're driving somewhere or they're
Mm.
out, offsite at a Starbucks. But it's become the culture now where everybody's good with it, and nobody gets any kind of pushback if they're at a Starbucks or if they're in the car. Like, that's just to be expected. You're going to have some of that,
Yeah.
but as long as they're paying attention to focus cameras on, then we know it's really working with the collaboration effort.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It is funny how that was a struggle for some people. I mean, it's like, I mean, you wouldn't walk into a meeting in your office with a ski mask on, would you? But people were okay with, like, didn't want to turn on their cameras. One other thing I wanted to explore with you, Tony, is the role of sales operations, and how critical that is, and what you have done to structure your sales operations part of the organization.
Yeah, so this is constantly evolving. Honestly, I wish it was probably more stable than it is, but I think we're evolving as the company grows, right? So the biggest change that we really implemented in our sales ops was creating multiple systems to, one, retain customers. So we built a strategic service force, and
Mm.
their job is really only to visit existing customers and to retain that business, right? Keep them at current buying levels or get them buying at higher levels. But a lot of that focus really put uh, an emphasis on solving problems for existing customers, which actually led into then our outside sales, which we separated the two, which
Right.
are the true hunters, right? It really
Mhm.
gave them some insight to what existing customers were experiencing, what they were seeing, and it allowed us to equip them with some tools to be better hunters. We've also separated our inside sales force. We used to have a satellite office where our inside sales office was based in Miami, and we actually relocated everybody down to our Mexico manufacturing facility. And
Hmm.
it was strategic for the fact that we could get answers to customers extremely fast, right?
Right.
And that's something, particularly within our industry, that customers can't wait, 6 hours for an answer. They want answers within minutes. And what
Mhm.
we found is by not having resources within the factories that can actually give real time status, it was leading to some unhappy CSAT scores. So we made that adjustment, and it's turned out to be one of the best things we've done.
Yeah.
Uh,
And a lean principle, if you like, as well, is you're putting the resources beside the, strategically putting resources beside other resources. I remember from one of the earliest ones that we did, and it just seemed so stupid at the time, stupidly obvious, right? Later was we had one of the project management groups who used at the time when printers were using print, who used the printers and the fax constantly, but they were on the far side of the office from where the printer and the fax was. So and it was actually in the kitchen. So when they went over to the printer to gather something, they're wasting time walking over there. And then when they got there, they were chatting with somebody. And before you knew it, what should have, so what did we do? We just moved the printer and right beside them. So I think these are some of the things that I think are sometimes people overlook the simple and most obvious fixes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're so they what do they call that? It's a movement analysis to see like how many steps you're taking in between operations. But we've taken that same analogy and we've looked at from everything from touch points. I mean, we really kind of remapped our entire client journey from the time
Mhm.
that a lead comes in to the time that they become, an enterprise customer, meaning that they're buying every single day from us. And
Right.
we found so many little things that were overlooked throughout the years, or overlooked because we grew up so quickly that those processes were never really thought through or put in place. And going through kind of these exercises over the past year have really kind of made us just dig deeper and slow down. While the growth has been fantastic and while we're having, everything that we could dream of from a growth trajectory, we also don't want to negatively impact the customers by growing too fast. So we're really kind of now slowing down, looking at the processes, creating the standard work to back those processes, and cataloging it where the whole business has access to refer to if they are not sure about a process or how to do something.
Yeah, because that's another great point. Because at the end of the day, it's the totality of the experience, and across all the touch points from when you first engage with the brand until you become a customer and advocate. And unfortunately, as you know, human nature being what it is, I always use the analogy of airline flight. Right, you can get to the airport on time, you can check in, everything is good, get on the plane takes off, smooth journey, all of this, and then you get to your destination and maybe your bags are delayed 10 minutes, right? And they make no announcement. What do
Sure.
you say? You say, people say, how was your flight? Oh, it was terrible. Even though actually it wasn't. It was just one tiny part of it. But that's how we're hardwired.
Yeah, yeah. So we on that note, we did implement a really nice piece of software called Ask Nicely about a year ago, and
Mm,
that was our ability to automate CSAT scores, right? To really survey the market and understand where we were doing really well, but also where we were not doing well, so we can make adjustments. And it's funny that I mean, the analogy you made is spot on. You could have a perfect order from artwork to manufacturing to shipping. But if FedEx delayed the order because of a storm,
yeah.
everything that was falling apart because of it. So just giving more clarity and I think visibility into the entire process on our side as well as our customers has I think reduced that quite a bit.
Yeah. And just a final question, Tony. So, how do you balance long-term strategic goals with the short-term needs of the business? Because that's always another big challenge that people face.
So we put a lot of emphasis on the executive level, what we call our Hoshin plan, which is our 3-year executive plan. But then outside of that, we have individual plans by team manager, and
Hmm.
those individual plans are typically a much smaller window. So
Right.
from my level, I'm looking at 3 to 5 years. The individual managers looking at really 3 to 12 months is kind of what their
Right.
plans are all structured around. And what we do is we track them by milestones, whether they be daily, weekly, monthly, much smaller increments, and the team reports on them. So once a week, we do have a Hoshin meeting, and that really the Hoshin meeting is for each of the team managers to come in and talk about. where they are against their plan, what worked, what didn't work, and what are you going to change based on what didn't work. So it keeps the long-term strategy in focus, but allows us also to highlight some of those smaller victories on a weekly basis, which I think is kept everybody really aligned.
Yeah. That's always a great thing, because I think that's another thing that we often overlook. I would say, we're great at catching people making mistakes. We're terrible at catching people doing good things.
And it's hard. I mean, we're not, our culture, as fun as we are and as young as we are, we don't do a good enough job celebrating the victories.
Yeah.
And I always joke with our CEO because he's the first one to admit that he is not the one to celebrate. You
Yeah.
can drop him the biggest deal in the world, but then the very next question is, so what's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
What have you
so
done for me next?
yeah, it's frustrating, but it's also great because it's challenged you to constantly push. Like everybody on across the entire revenue team is always looking to push beyond what's being asked. Which this is the first time in the 20 years I've been here that I feel like the whole business is starting to click, and everybody's motivated the same way. But it's all stemming from that culture of what's next.
Yeah.
Great job, you won. We'll celebrate, but what's next?
Excellent. Well, listen, Tony, this has been great insights. All of Tony's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So World Emblem is the world's largest emblem and badge manufacturer. So we'll do anything on my shirt from a embroidered patch, sublimated patch, to a rubberized PVC patch, to direct embroidery. We have multiple locations throughout North America. So we're in Mexico, US, and Canada, which has been a very successful place for us to be manufacturing with everything going on in the world. And as companies are looking to nearshore garment
Mm.
decoration, it's led to obviously an explosion growth on our end.
Yeah, no, great business and great story. Thank you, Tony, for sharing that. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.